10% of people with autism being in full-time paid employment and 18% of kids with autism going on to further and higher education. And that statistic blew my brain because I am a mother of a now 20-year-old with high-functioning autism who's currently at university reading classics, who read the Iliad for fun when he was 12. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met, and he's always done really well. And I thought, how can we have 90% of a proportion of people out of work just because they're autistic? It makes no sense to me.
Behind every Microsoft partner is a story of growth, a story of ambition, and a story of people pushing themselves, their businesses, and technology further. Every week here on Microsoft Mentors, the podcast, I speak to business, technology, and thought leaders from across the Microsoft partner ecosystem, offering mentorship at scale to the Microsoft partner community. So let's dive into this week's episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Today I'm really excited to finally be joined by Mags Totten. How are you doing, Mags?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all. And we're quite lucky today because it feels like spring has finally arrived in the UK, right?
It's lovely. I'm down in sunny London at the moment at our London HQ and right at Paddington Basin, and it's been a beautiful day.
Indeed. And after the winter that we've had, very wet, very grey. I think everyone in the UK.
I'm Scottish. You guys have it good. You know, I have no idea how good you have it. We only get 3 days of sunshine, but today apparently is one of those days up north as well.
There you go. Well, I guess for anyone that hasn't come across you before, Mags, and I know you're quite a well-known face in the Microsoft partner ecosystem, but for anyone that doesn't know you, it'd just be good to get a bit of a background of who you are and what you're doing at the moment, if that's okay.
Of course. So I'm Margaret Totten. Everyone calls me Mags. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer over at Yavrio. So we're a fintech company working in the Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem, helping finance teams connect their banking and payments to their ERP. I've been in the channel for about nearly 20 years now, building and selling businesses. So I am now in my third startup, which is very exciting. And my role is really about building the go-to-market and the revenue around it. So building go-to-market motion, working closely with partners, which I love. I adore the Microsoft partner ecosystem, aligning with Microsoft and making sure the commercial model works well. So I'm just there to try and drive all of that.
Yeah, sounds like a good new venture for you, and we'll dive into that in a little bit more detail down the line. But I've got a bit of a roll call for you in terms of your last 15 years, right? So founded and started IA Cubed back in 2012. Grew that to eventual exit.
Yep.
And that was with GCI, right?
Yes, that was. We sold to GCI in 2018.
And then moving out the back of that, started Akari.
Yes.
And so that was 2019. Sorry. That then developed into and was rebranded as Ingentive.
Yes.
That journey up until the last few months. On top of that, board member and diversity and inclusion lead for UK IAMCP and board member and treasurer for the Scottish Women in Technology, and then obviously your current role at Yavrio as CRO. So quite a busy 16 years there.
Yeah, quite a busy life. I don't sleep, or I very rarely sleep. I only sleep a couple of hours a night.
Yeah, so do I, but that's not my choice. That's because of children. So it'd be really good, and I think to get some sort of early context on you and your sort of journey in this space, I'd be really interested to learn a little bit about a couple of those journeys and what they've looked like and see what the trends are between them. So if we rewind the clock back to sort of early 2012 and you starting off IA Cubed, what was the thought process there? What was the rationale behind starting that business? And give us a bit of a picture of the journey, if that's all right, Mags.
Yep, that's fine. So with IA Cubed, it was just at the junction where cloud was becoming the next big thing. You think everyone's talking about AI right now? Back then it was cloud, and cloud was just as foreign to some businesses as AI is just now. So I started working with a groundbreaking woman who's sadly no longer with us, called Vivian McKee. And we decided that we were going to be Scotland's first cloud champion. And we wanted to bring the cloud market to Scotland. Scotland tech market was ready for it, and we wanted to sort of embrace that change. But we realised very quickly that the partner ecosystem was UK wide. It wasn't just in Scotland. Microsoft Scotland is an absolutely fantastic team of people, some of whom I now count as some of my closest friends. But the UK team is what really changed the game for us, and it helped us build a business that could be UK and maybe even European wide. So we set off with a dream to become Scotland's first cloud champion, but we were very, very fortunate, and we actually started building one of the UK's strongest cloud companies of our size over a very brief timepiece.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There's always a journey with organisations, and they tend to start regional, but very quickly, and especially if they're in the Microsoft space, there's just so much opportunity. And the joy of the technology landscape that we now have is that you don't need to be in the same city as customers anymore. Gone are the days where you used to have to maybe get on site and get under their desk and unplug their servers, etc. Cloud opened that up, and obviously opened up a lot of opportunities for organisations to work on a more national scale.
Yeah.
So with that sort of growth curve in cloud, then was the focus at IA Cubed around things like, I guess, 365, Azure, those sort of technology stacks within Microsoft?
So it was mainly 365. Azure was still quite new to the game, and it did become a big part of what we were doing. But our main focus was taking companies that were dark to cloud, and there were a lot of them back then. People would be surprised because it's not that long ago. But our job was to look at companies that could really benefit from moving from that on-premise system into cloud. We, even back then, did a lot of partner-to-partner work with companies like Exactive and Redspire. So what we tried to do was work with companies that had their own speciality around things like dynamics and around telecommunications. And we focused on the modern work piece at that point in time. We focused on how we changed how people worked. And originally it was built as a lifestyle style business, but circumstances sometimes come along to change that. And the circumstances, sadly for me then, were the death of my managing director and business partner, Vivian McKee. So she sadly passed away during that journey, and that changed the trajectory of the company. And we started looking at how we would build a company to exit, which was brand new to me. And that's when we started building a different type of organisation, where not only were we looking at how we could affect the market and how the market could change, but how do you make that company profitable? How do you build EBITDA? How do you make sure that you're building a company that people will be interested in? And how do you build those connections? So that was a very sharp learning curve as we sort of built on that trajectory before the sale to GCI.
Yeah, and I guess it's a big pivot, right? Because the way that you build and grow and scale a lifestyle focused business is very different to if you're growing and scaling a business where ultimately the goal is to try and get towards an exit event, right? Yeah. I guess for you in that journey, were there certain elements where you had to learn very quickly around how to get the business, what the metrics that investors are interested in, and basically understand that whole business model and change from a lifestyle operating model towards a business that you're trying to scale and exit then?
Yes, very much. And you have to learn those things while still doing the day job. So you don't get to go learn these things and then come back and apply them day to day. We had to learn as we were growing. We had to learn as we serviced customers. We had to learn as we were helping make sure our teammates were growing. So you have to learn all the skills that come with making a business profitable, making a business attractive to investors, growing and building a business, growing the profit at the same time as making sure that you're working with customers, satisfying customers. So it's a very steep learning curve, and it's something you have to learn on the job, not alongside the job. So that was a challenge, but it was something that I'm very grateful for, because I learned a lot of life skills over the last 15 years that I've continued to apply. And one of the things that helped was that partner ecosystem. I have partners that I could turn to for advice, that I could ask questions of, partners who were on the same journey or partners who had done that journey. And I find that the ecosystem is usually very good at giving back. So I got a lot of advice from back then from partners in Microsoft, etc., that I was really grateful for.
Yeah, because it's almost counterintuitive, isn't it, the Microsoft partner ecosystem? Because on paper, a lot of the time, there's competition. Everyone is competing in a similar sort of space. But you found it, and I've been working in the Microsoft partner ecosystem now for nearly 10 years, and I've always been continually surprised and amazed by the amount of collaboration, openness, and transparency that there is between partners. Because a lot of the time, if one partner can support another partner to succeed, everyone succeeds, and then at the end of it, Microsoft succeed, and then they feed that back down, and it's just this sort of symbiotic relationship, isn't it, between the whole ecosystem?
Yep, I remember a while back, Microsoft had a tagline that's partners make more possible. And I always loved that because I don't think that's just for Microsoft. I think that's in the ecosystem. I count some of my best and closest friends as people at Microsoft and people in the partner ecosystem. And we've grown up together over the last 15 to 18 years. And partners really do make more things possible. It's one of the things that attracted me to my current role because it's so partner focused. Because I think when you're in this ecosystem, we are competition, and there'll be times where you can only go so far to help. But I've never been part of a more giving community than the Microsoft partner ecosystem.
Yeah. And I guess the timelines at IA Cubed looked like they were fairly accelerated from start towards the eventual exit to GCI. Before the exit happened, what are the timelines like before that? When did you get to a point where you're like, actually we're ready to go and start talking to people and seeing what the options are? Can you remember what that looked like?
So we were quite lucky that we actually did have people approach us. We didn't, both times. We didn't have to go out to the market to look. I think one thing I've always been very good at is brand building. I've always been very good at making those connections and building those relationships. So people got to know us. It's quite funny. The people that I haven't met, like we've spoken about before, say, "Well, we haven't met, but I have heard of you," and it's usually good things, thankfully. So we were making enough an impact in the system that people were coming to us to see, right, how are you doing this? How is a small company in Scotland making such a big wave? How is what's quite classically a small partner in the ecosystem winning clients like Skyscanner, which we won quite early on? So I think we made enough noise that people started approaching us. So we didn't have to make that decision of when do we go start talking to people, because people were already coming to us and expressing that interest, and that happened twice.
Yeah. And then I guess one of the most difficult parts of any acquisition is post-acquisition integration of systems, integrations of culture, of people. What did that journey look like? Because it can go one way or the other, right?
It's a very interesting journey. I've not spoken to her, but Scott Riley, who was GCI, actually became a really close friend during that acquisition period because he helped bridge the gap between IA Cubed and GCI. And he was always very tolerant and very helpful with the fact that you do feel a wee bit like in the beginning, particularly with IA Cubed, like it's your baby. And it can be quite hard to let go of that. It's quite hard to realise that you're now no longer having to make every decision. You're now no longer the sole voice, and your team's no longer the sole voice. You're part of a bigger organisation. You're part of a bigger entity, and that you have to adjust and adapt and change. And those changes are usually very much for the better, but it's still a journey. It's still something you have to approach with a very open mindset. And Scott was fantastic. Scott and I worked really well together at that. But it does have its ups and downs. It was a very interesting journey at the time because, again, GCI were a telecoms organisation, so it wasn't an organisation that I was completely aware of. We were modern work, so we were plugging in from that modern work and that changing how people work element, which is where I feel really comfortable. So again, it's another learning curve because you have to learn new technologies that you might not have been selling or working with before. And it's also a journey for your clients because your clients are going from being your clients to this other organisation's clients, and there can be unrest and unsettlement with that. So a lot of work has to go into that. And then the third part of it is your team. One of the biggest things that happen is the team can become quite unsure about what's going to happen to them, what do their roles look like, how were their lives changed. So there's a lot of balancing you have to do post acquisition, and I think that allowed me to learn how to be a lot more open and adaptive to what people were saying to me, and it was a very interesting journey. I always knew it wasn't going to be my landing space, that I wasn't going to be there forever because telecommunications wasn't where my passion lies. And so it was an exciting journey. I learned a lot from it. I met some great people during it, but I think I always knew that my next big adventure was still to come. And I think that's what Akari ended up being.
Yeah. And so you've gone through this journey of growing and scaling and ultimately exiting IA cubed. Obviously, it sounds like, on a personal level, that was probably quite a difficult and stressful time as well. And then decided to do it all again.
Yeah. Yeah, my husband does wonder sometimes what I think. There is a funny saying across my very close friends and family that I will phone someone. I did it quite recently about something we can chat about later if you'd like. And it's like, I've got an idea. And it's like, no. And I'm like, no, really, it's a really good idea. And it usually does. I'm very lucky. My ideas have turned out to be great ideas. But the Akari one came up very naturally. So Hector Minto, who used to be at Microsoft, was doing an event, and I'll never forget it because I was looking for that next big adventure. But see where cloud was a really, really easy shift. We knew cloud was a big momentum in the market. By this time, cloud's quite settled. People have adapted to it. AI wasn't on the forefront yet. Like it wasn't where it is just now. You are going back to 2019. So I was looking at what's that next big shift because I'm a big believer that what I do should move the needle, should change the way things happen. And I went to an accessibility event where Hector Minto was talking about 10% of people with autism being in full time paid employment and 18% of kids with autism going on to further and higher education. And that statistic blew my brain because I am a mother of a now 20-year-old with high functioning autism who's currently at university reading classics, who read the Iliad for fun when he was 12. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met. And he's always done really well. And I thought, how can we have 90% of a proportion of people out of work just because
Yeah.
they're autistic? It makes no sense to me. And I started looking at the correlation between my son and how he was doing. And I realized technology was a bridge for him because technology allowed him to move away from having a reader and scribe in his exams and using text to speech because that's how he's comfortable writing his answers. And I thought, right, so I wonder where else technology can plug that gap. And I started looking at what was quite a new market, which was Teams, Apps and Solutions. And I thought, right, I can see how these new, very early steps into automation, so what was to then become things like apps and Power Platform. And then I read a statistic that in the next I think it was like the next 3 years, more apps will be built than in the previous 20. And I thought, right, there's a new market coming built around automation, apps, and how things change. And that can change how people live, learn, and work. And that was the birthplace of Akari.
Interesting. And so, did you going into that then? Was there obviously? It sounds like there was a thought process in terms of how that technology could impact. There was an identification of what the technology substacks would be as well. Did that
Yeah.
then flow through in terms of the, I guess, the sales engine and the customer ecosystem that you ended up working in? Was it predominantly targeted into places like education, and or was it across the board? Was it still fairly varied in terms of the client base?
No, it was still very varied because I was also very clear that where I always want to make a company that makes a difference, it's also important because I wasn't setting up a social enterprise that was a company that would have to grow, employ people, and make a profit. So I was managing director of Akari, and that meant that was my responsibilities. I was taking these new teammates on. I was responsible for their livelihoods. So it had to be a really strong commercial organisation at the same time. So I did what I normally do when I'm sitting thinking about things. I turned to Microsoft and the partner ecosystem and I started asking questions. I sat down with people that I trust in Microsoft and explained my ideas, and then we set up the company. And then I remember being in a sort of brainstorming session as, and I know what I'm trying to get across to customers, but how do we do it in a way that customers will embrace? And it was a session with Microsoft. We thought, why don't we create app in a day? Why don't we create this piece of program where we've got a 2-day program where we will create an application within Teams in 2 days, and we're actually leaving the customer with something substantial, a return on their investment at the end of it. And Microsoft were willing to fund it. So all the customer was investing at that point in time was their time. So that seemed like a great way of sort of moving forward. And that became the beginning of our offering at Akari. And we work with Microsoft and some really exciting customers through that, like Marks and Spencer's, Centrica, Lloyd's Bank, Sainsbury's. There was lots of really big customers that wanted to embrace this new technology. And we did that quite quickly. And what always happens is you always have a change that hits you with a challenge. And at that point in time, our change was COVID. So I started
Yeah.
business. We started the business in 2019. We all know what happened just after 2019. We had COVID-19. So again, that was a really, really trying time for a lot of people because the world moved to an area of uncertainty where they weren't sure what to do. But to me, that's where technology really started making a difference. And it's where technology companies really got a chance to shine, because everything we've been putting in, the blocks that we've been building and the offers we're putting out to clients allowed us to work with like the NHS and other large organisations as their world changed and shifted to get them used to this brand new way of working. So no, our client base was really diverse, from NHS organisations through to small businesses, right through to multinational organisations like Tesco.
Yeah, I think, like I say, COVID is such an interesting time for technology, and especially within the Microsoft space. And I think, when you think about what happened and the real quick pivot that organisations had to make so that they could still continue to operate, moving really high volumes of workers to remote and having the technology that feeds into that. How do they interact? How do they connect? And those technologies were there before COVID, and businesses were using them. But I guess the scale and scope of them was limited in a way by maybe some perceptions, reservations, beliefs about working in offices versus working remotely. And then COVID just keep the businesses going. And out the back of that, whilst there's, the debate about where you should work in or out of an office and things like that will go on till forever. What it definitely has left is this, and going back to your earlier point, that only supports more inclusive hiring, right? So where there are examples of people that maybe, can't be in an office 5 days a week, whether that is because of something like autism or ADHD or physical disabilities, these technologies that COVID really put into the forefront broke down a lot of those barriers. And you would hope, and I don't know what the stats would be on it, but have opened up hopefully opportunities to people that maybe were struggling in office workspaces but are now much more available in the market because they can work remotely.
It totally changed how people lived and worked, and that's where I think technology partners were really able to come to the fore and enabling that change. The technologies from Microsoft, the enablement from partners, is what allowed everything to keep turning during what was one of the biggest pieces of change I think any of us have seen in our lifetime.
For sure. And so the business started as Akari, and then it became Ingentive. Talk me through a little bit about that journey, and obviously the journey towards eventually you moving on from Ingentive. What did that whole ecosystem look like?
So we built Akari over a number of years, and it actually became Ingentive post-acquisition. So
Right.
Akari was actually acquired by a company called Wolf Partners, which is headed up by Stuart Fenton.
Yep.
So Akari had been growing, and then we decided that we were ready for acquisition, and that's when we were acquired, which was actually 3 years ago last month. So we were acquired in February 2023. And I moved from the role of managing director into chief marketing officer, but still with a strong hand in alliances because the partner ecosystem is what I know really, really well. So we then started changing and growing into a different type of business and rebranded as Ingentive in October 2023. So it remained Akari for a short period of time after acquisition, and then that rebranded into Ingentive. And over the next couple of years, the company continued to grow and change and adapt into something different. So again, it was about broadening what we offer. My business before was very focused on Power Platform, Teams apps and solutions, automation, and what were the very beginnings of AI. So we became a Microsoft Jumpstart partner really quickly because we've been working at that sort of breaking point of AI for a long time before a lot of other people had caught up. So we became a Jumpstart partner very quickly. I focused on how I could build that business, that brand into something that is game changing for Microsoft. And I'm very, very proud to say that we did. So we became an inner circle partner. We got all 6 solutions designations, got us onto Jumpstart, got us in the sort of cutting edge of what we were trying to do. And at the same time, I got a lot of experience at building that go-to-market. I'd say that I'd always worked very strongly within sales. I'd always worked very strong within alliances, and they were my 2 sort of core points. But over those 2.5 years, I started to really learn the depth of marketing. I love learning. It's one of the things that I really, really enjoy. If you give me a challenge or a puzzle, I will go and solve it for you, and I'll go and figure out how to do something. If I can't do it, You just have to tell me what it is and I will go and learn to do it. So I embraced that change very quickly, and I learned the basics of marketing, everything from paid ads to SEO, to how that works, to the data part of marketing, which a lot of people don't understand, but I get quite excited about how you can build AI optimization. As the world continues to change, traditional things like SEO don't matter as much now. It's been found by the right search engines and the right LLMs, and it can be quite technical. So I grew my skills in that over that period of time, and then realised that I'd reached the end of that journey. I'd gotten the company to where I thought I'd brought a lot of value and I'd delivered on what I was trying to do, and the company was in a really strong place, and I was ready for my next challenge. I wasn't looking for exactly where I ended up, but I knew that again, I wanted something where I was affecting change, where I was pushing that needle, where I was helping things grow, where I was building something that I could be really proud of. So I moved on from Ingentive in January, January of this year, and started my brand new adventure with Yavrio in February. And it feels like forever. A couple of people say it feels like yesterday I started, but I also feel like I've been here forever.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting journey, and I think for, for me, if I was going to sort of try and analyze the trends across those different journeys, the partnership side of things is obviously massive, right?
Yes.
In terms of both partner to partner and that relationship and alliance that you've built in both businesses with Microsoft, I think has obviously been fairly key in terms of the accelerated growth that you managed to achieve. And then also, um, it sounds like finding pockets and lanes within the market where you're going into it early,
Mm-hmm.
but identifying that there's going to be growth in that particular space quite quickly,
Yeah.
because it's always difficult, isn't it? And where do you place your bets
I
is
think
one.
that's I think that's a really important part of it. So I was very, very fortunate that when I left Ingentive, I actually got quite a few offers quite quickly. And they were all very exciting and they were all very different. And a lot of people were quite surprised at where I ended up because it's an ISV, and I've always traditionally worked in SI, so I've always been service orientated. But I remember years ago reading something about, you don't look at where the puck is, look at where the puck's going to be, and it's a hockey term. And the best hockey players don't look at who's got the puck; they look at the trajectory of where that puck's going to go. And I think I'm actually very good at that. I think it's something I've always quite found comes naturally to me. I can usually see what's going to come just before it starts to come, and that's what's helped me build businesses and exit businesses. I'm very proud that I've managed to grow and successfully exit two really strong businesses. So when I was looking at the offers on the table, that's where Yavrio really struck home for me, because I think they were perfectly poised to take on a brand new market where you've got a lot of stuff around AI, and there's so many businesses in the area that are working with AI and automation, and we do that at Yavrio. But what we're trying to do is change how fintech works. I'd never looked at a fintech before, and Yavrio works very much in that space between finance and technology, and that intersection where they meet. And the market is ready for that. The market is ready for the next stage of evolution when it comes to finance. And that's what made me decide on the Yavrio piece. That and the people. I will openly admit, I absolutely adore the people. The people and the proposition of what they're doing and what they're going to market with was one, game changing. Two, it was something I knew that I could affect and I could actually push. And three, it's very much the right place at the right time. They'd already built such a great, strong business, but I could see where that trajectory was going, and I very much wanted to be a part of it. I'm very good at seeing where the hockey puck's going to be.
For sure, for sure. So if we sort of dig in and you know coming into month two now, just now that you're in the business, you know, you're behind the curtain, you've got a bit of a feel for it all. What are the sort of the big differences between that sort of SI service led business versus an ISV in terms of structurally how they're built, commercially, what their commercial levers look like? Just give us a bit of feel for some of the contrasting differences between the two.
So I think one of the biggest differences between an SI and an ISV isn't just the fact that you're moving from services to product. It's that the go to market is very, very, very different. So the go to market with ISVs is a different ball game from services. With services, it's almost something intangible, and you have to showcase an end solution to a client, and the life cycles can be long. With Yavrio, it's plug and play. It's literally, you have a problem, we've developed something to fix it, you press a button and your problem is solved. It's very much, we have this thing here at Yavrio where it's all about aiming for zero, like zero files. Take away the way things used to work, where you downloaded multiple files and uploaded them into your ERP and then reconciled them. It's a zero files and it's a zero hassle and it's a 0 minute installation. It's about how do you solve a problem quickly. So when you're moving from services to product, you're moving from long sales life cycles, you're moving from a lot of information around the ROI and how you prove that and what that means and the complexity, and you're moving to a very simple solution to a very, very important problem. So you're solving customer problems almost instantly. So that's quite different. I think another huge difference is between ISVs and SIs. I don't know if they're called SDCs now, so I think the terminology changed. But the big difference between ISVs and SIs, or product and services, is your go-to-market is different, because you're in a business-to-business world, but your message is almost B2C. So we're at Directions North America next month, which we're a sponsor of, and we're actually doing a session on how to make your marketing, how B2B marketing doesn't have to be boring. What's the best lessons you can learn from B2C? And when you're an ISV and you're product based, your marketing is still very much B2B, but because it's product, you can take a lot of the best of B2C marketing and make it your own. So the go-to-market is different. And I think the other big thing is partners. The ISV system works really well in the partner ecosystem. You brought it up yourself earlier on that in the services industry, you're almost competition for each other and you're not building those strong bridges. Unless you're a very dedicated partner, which I was in the beginning, where you relied on other partners to fill the parts you didn't do, you're very much a solo worker. With ISVs, that's not the case. So I think that's the other big difference. And I think the biggest thing ISVs have to get right, which is different from service again, is you need to understand your product in that commercial motion inside and out. You need to understand exactly what you do and how you do it, because it's not a long drawn out process. It's explaining to customers today how you can help them today. So I think they're the biggest differences that I've seen.
Yeah, and like you say, it's probably one thing that drew you to the role, right? Is that there's a real opportunity to take your product and the benefits and impact that you can deliver to customers and leverage partners that are in the same space as you to work with you closely to help them solve their customers' problems, right?
Well, that's exactly what it is. And there's a reason Microsoft are backing ISV so strongly just now, and why they've built things like the ISV Success Program and the startup programs, because the world is totally different from when I first set up my first company. And the way I see it just now is Microsoft has built the platform. So we all work, all our partners work with the Microsoft platform. The partners, the SI partners are in there delivering the transformation, but it's the ISVs that are truly extending that capability, that are actually taking those transformations and making them live in the real world. It's taking what Microsoft platform and the Microsoft partners have built and turning them into the ways that change how people are currently doing what they do. So if you look at almost Copilot, right, and AI and Copilot are reshaping expectations around business systems. And that's what transformation partners get involved with. But ISVs are actually building the solutions that fit for that future. So you've got ISVs that have got AI, they've got automation inbuilt, they've got all these different things. Again, it's what excites me about Yavrio. It's not a one-stop product. It started with feeds and payments, and it then moved on to reconciliation. And now, as of this week, we've just launched card payments natively within BC. And unless that's a problem that you understand and you know it's a problem to solve, you might not have thought about it. But there are tens of thousands of people dealing with that problem every day, and they can have the Microsoft platform, they can have the great Dynamics implementation from a brilliant Microsoft partner, but it's that Yavrio extensibility that has truly made the product the fit for solution they need. And that's where the three fit really well, and it's why the partner ecosystem is so important to ISVs, because it's a team game, and that's what I love about it.
And I guess with the shift into the ISV world, how does that ISV to Microsoft relationship look like? Because obviously, the world that I live in and that you've lived in, it's solution designations, advanced specializations, as your expert MSP, we know sort of how that, or I know how all of that works. I don't honestly know as much what that relationship looks like between Microsoft and ISVs, how you can leverage it, co-sell motions, all of that sort of stuff. So what does that look like on that side of the fence?
So it's growing daily, but it's very, very good. Where I've been lucky again is a lot of people currently working in the digital natives program and in the ISV program for Microsoft are people that I have worked with and alongside for years, like Andrew Bentley, Stevie Mulligan, Lee Corbett, etc. They've already embraced this world of ISVs and they have been so helpful and helping me on that learning journey. And then you've got absolute superstars like Darren Sharp as well, who's out there plugging Marketplace and talking about how Marketplace can really help Microsoft partners grow. And it can help every Microsoft partner grow, but it's really, really key for ISV partners like ourselves. So I'm getting a lot of help around, we're on Marketplace, how do we Microsoft have been really helpful and they are really helpful about how do you maximize that? How do you take that marketplace listing? How do you build it into co-sell motion? And Microsoft are embracing that ISVs by making sure that IP co-sell is available. You've now got new things like the solutions destination coming out for ISVs. So the world is shifting towards it. It's a very different proposition where the position is quite mature for SIs with your 6 solutions designations and your programs, etc. Because ISVs and the software that we're building is quite new, then yes, the platform around it is new. And when I first came into it, I told you I like learning. I'm learning something new every day. But luckily, I'm learning it with so much support and so much support from the ecosystem. And Microsoft are definitely placing bets on this. So again, it shows you it's the right place to be.
Yeah, for sure. And so with all of that, as if you're not busy enough, Mags, you've also got roles and involvement outside of the businesses that you work within. So if we start with the IAMCP, which I always manage or find difficult to say, but if people haven't come across that organisation before, just give people a bit of an insight in terms of what that is and then what your role within that is, if that's okay.
Of course. So IAMCP is the International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners, and I got involved a few years back actually. I've known about them a long time, but I came on the board a few years back. And what they are basically there to do is to help Microsoft partners understand the Microsoft ecosystem, to help plug them in, to help them understand what everything we've just been talking about, solutions designation, programs, platforms, what does it all mean? There are about 37,000 Microsoft partners across the UK alone, and Microsoft themselves can't manage all those partners. They can't reach all those partners, and the IMCP is the absolutely perfect middleman to help with that. So what we do is work with that partner ecosystem and try and help them solve those problems. And again, Microsoft have really embraced that. We've had great people come along and talk at our Microsoft events like Appy and Nick Hiderman, etc. So we've had all these people come along and talk to partners. And my part of it is people and culture, diversity, inclusion, people and culture. So it's helping them understand how to build a strong people and culture and how to get advice from the way we've built our organisations and how that can help with them. We do like webinars, we do in-person events, and it's all about bridging that gap and getting more Microsoft partners to understand if you don't know how best to maximise your Microsoft partnership, then come and talk to us, because there is a world of information, there's a world of support and a world of extensibility out there that you might not even be scratching the surface of, and IMCP are there to try and surface that for you.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, isn't it? And even when you think you've sussed it,
yeah,
everything changes.
Everything changes.
Whether that's from technologies, whether it's from funding programs, solution designations, the shift from gold partner statuses to solution partners a few years ago. Obviously, FY26, there was it's purely dedicated to it, like an alliance manager or a partner manager. You need to be working with organisations like yourselves to support that, because otherwise it can just get lost very quickly, can't it?
Very. And not all partners can afford things like alliance managers and alliance directors or that direct thing. The partners that can definitely should. Alliance roles are the to me, a fundamental part of most partners. If you don't have that alliances, then you're going to miss out on things. But a lot of Microsoft partners are small, or they're small and growing, or they're scaling, and they might not have that understand it. But it's really important that they're able to bridge that gap. And I think organisations like IMCP help do that. If you're not a member, you should join.
Yeah, and I'll make sure we tag everyone in it so they can easily find it when they're listening
Yeah.
to the podcast. And then Scottish women or Scotland women in technology. Obviously, hopefully says a little bit about what it does on the tin.
Yes.
But I guess you've obviously been, you've been through your own journey as a female leader in technology over the
Yeah.
last 20 years. What's your sort of personal experience and take been it? How has that sort of changed over the last 20 years in terms of women in technology, opportunities, investment, and things like that?
So Scotland Women Technology is one of my favourite places in the entire world, and I joined there back in 2019 because I realised that I knew my community in regards to Microsoft, but technology is much bigger than that. And in Scotland, I didn't really know the people in my own backyard. I didn't know the Scottish tech community. And it is Scotland Women Technology because you don't have to be Scottish. It's women in technology working in Scotland. And we come together to basically help celebrate and champion and invest in women in technology. We do an award ceremony every year, which I actually discovered it because I was nominated for one of the awards one year. But we also do things like we've done programs like cyber skills that we've trained women in cybersecurity. We've helped people get back to work. We do all these different programs of events. And I think programs like that are what has changed it. I do believe that it is very different from when I started 16, 17 years ago in technology. I do still think that there is a lot of male domination in the industry. And I do think there are still, unfortunately, that you will always find that people might not be as far forward as you would hope they would be. But I do think there is a massive change in the industry, and there has been. But the reason I'm still involved with Scotland Women in Technology is because that change hasn't reached its full circle yet. We were doing a strategy day quite recently, and we were deciding where we want to see Scotland Women in Technology in 5 years' time. And my chair, Silka, who is a fantastic woman, said, I want us to not exist. I want there to be no need for a Scotland Women in Technology board in Scotland because we've moved the needle to the extent that we're no longer needed. And I thought, wow, I've not thought of it that way, but that is what we should be aiming for. We should be aiming for a place where that doesn't. And what's quite prevalent is my role in the IMCP is all about diversity and inclusion as well, because I'm very much a champion of inclusion. And it's not just inclusion for women. One of the biggest areas that is completely ignored is socioeconomic diversity and kids that might have grew up in areas where they've not been given the same chances or opportunities that other people have just because of their postcode. So I think the world is shifting and changing, but I think it's up to people like ourselves in positions with that privilege to continue making that noise to make sure it continues to change and gets to where we want it to be.
Yeah, for sure. And I see it from my side, right, working in the Microsoft talent space, and I
Yeah.
think generally what I see, and I think you can slowly see that change taking place. But
Yeah.
when you get to more senior roles, whether that is in technology, whether that's in commercial, it is still very male dominated. What's
Yeah.
good to see is that a lot of the young emerging talent is a lot more diverse in nature and makeup. And
Yeah.
hopefully, like I say, over the next 5 years, alongside that strategy session that you had, we'll see those developing their early and mid-level careers starting to really push through into those senior leadership roles, and I think that will continue to move the needle.
I agree.
Cool. And so we've been through a big old journey there. If you were to look back all the way back to the very start, knowing everything that you know now, is there anything that you would say, Mags, these are the 2 or 3 things that you need to know going into the whole journey from the start?
I would change and my answer would be no. There's What do I wish I knew then that I know now? I think that's a hard one because I think it would affect my journey and I
True.
wouldn't change my journey. The good, the bad, and the ugly, everything that's happened to me over the last 16 years, everything that I've affected, everything that I've changed, everything that I've built, and everything that has happened is part of where I am just now. I believe that all these different adventures that you go on and the skills that you learn and the people you meet become part of that fabric and become part of that. So I always like to not dwell on the past. I do, if I was going to say anything, I wish younger me would have told me to say no more often. I'm very, very good at saying yes. Somebody will ask me to do something. Well, yeah, I can do that. But again, would that have maybe changed my opportunities? Perhaps. But I'm
Yeah.
getting much better now at advocating for myself. I've always been great at advocating for others, but it's taken me a journey to learn to advocate for myself and to realise that making the right decision for me is not the bad move, that just because it might let others down, that doesn't mean it's a bad decision. So maybe I would tell them to say no. But again, I might have said no to opportunities that have changed my life. I love my life. I'm surrounded by the most wonderful friends and family a person could ask for. I get to work with the most amazing people, and that's both within Yavrio and the partners and within Microsoft. And I've grown so many friends in this community. So a part of me wouldn't say anything, because I think sometimes when you change that, you can fundamentally change your journey. And I've had a pretty fantastic journey, even with the bad.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, no journey is ever perfect, right? And you can't get anywhere in business or life with everything being perfect. There's always going to be bumps in the road, challenges that you've got to navigate, and like you say, that then informs your growth for the future, right? And obviously you know, a couple of months in now to getting your skin under the new role and understanding Yavrio and what that journey is going to look like. So what's you know, what's the business's plans over the next 12, 18, 24 months?
Oh well, so I joined at the start of the hockey part. We're talking a lot of hockey analogies. I don't even like hockey, by the way. I'm not a sports gal, but if you look at the sort of hockey stick growth trajectory at Yaviro where I joined, that stretch is coming. It's coming quickly. What we're doing, what we're building, is genuinely game changing for any organisation using Microsoft Dynamics, because what we're doing is implementing a real change that affects every single user and can help make their lives easier. So I would stick around. The next 6 months are going to be very fast and grow very quickly. We've got fantastic growth plans. We are building the team. Like, it feels like almost daily right now. We're looking for my CEO's like that. It's about finding the elite talent. There are elite people out there, and if they're elite, we want them at Yavrio, and I completely agree with that. So we are on a journey. We are bringing people on that journey. It is growing at such a rate. And it's not just the fact that we're bringing on more and more customers, that we're bringing on more and more people. The offering itself is changing at such a rapid pace, because we're seeing so many different gaps in the fintech market with their ERP system that our technology can solve. So what started off as feeds and payments, which was already revolutionary because we were taking away that pain. Everything right now is about, how do you automate? How do you take away the pain of what something's doing? How do you take a tedious manual job and make it better? How do you make it more secure? How do you make it fixed? And we'd already started fixing that. But as you saw this week, we've just launched card payments natively within Business Central, and card payments natively within Dynamics 365. So you've got that element. We're just about to add things like expenses in. So you've got all these different parts of the financial journey that we're on a mission to make better. So our mission is just to make finance teams not have any headaches when they're utilising their ERP. We are on that mission to make sure that we do things quickly, cleanly, that it plugs in well. So I think over the next 6 to 12 months, you will see a lot of growth in the company in regards to heads. You'll see a lot of growth in the company in regards to new logos, and it's already going at a very rapid pace. But you will also start to see more and more fantastic additions. I was very lucky that I've got a newbie starter with me. So our CTO, Jack Mallender, joined at the same time as me. So we get to see this journey together as relative newbies, and he's been instrumental with his product team in developing our card solution that went live, and is currently still expanding on that and growing on that. So having those types of people working for the organization means that we're going to be growing our offering faster, we're going to market faster, and our partners are keeping up brilliantly, which is wonderful.
Sounds like it's going to be another exciting journey of fast growth and pedal to the floor for you, Mags. How do you find the time to do it all? How do you balance it on a personal level? How do you juggle all the balls?
I genuinely, this is a standing joke within the organisation now, but it's true. I don't sleep as much as I probably should, but I'm also surrounded by a fantastic support network. Nobody in this company is on the journey alone. It's all about how we help each other. So as an organisation, it's nobody sitting left in a corner drowning. It's like we all work together to make sure that we are assisting each other, that we are building at scale and at pace, but we're doing it in harmony with each other. We're not actually hurting each other as we grow at such a rapid pace. So that itself is game changing. My family are the best. My family and friends are the best support network anybody could ask for. They facilitate me to be able to do what I'm trying to do all the time. So whether that's my son started making dinner once a week, so it's little strange things. But I think it's one, I don't sleep anywhere nearly enough. Two, if I'm not doing something, I get bored. And if I'm energized about something, I'm just all in. And I am so energized right now about what Yavrio are doing and what we're bringing to the market. So I just managed to juggle that. And then the two other things outside that are passion projects are two things I fully believe in. I fully believe in the partner community and enabling as many partners as we can. So IMCP is really close to me. And I believe in Scotland's Women in Technology. I'm so fully behind her chair. It's unbelievable. She's one of my best friends and I do adore her. But what she's brought to the Scottish market is unique. And I believe that I need to be there pushing that dial. I've got two nieces, although I only had a boy, so I had my son, but I do have two nieces and I have goddaughters, and I want to make sure that the world that they are leaving school and coming into is a different world from the world that I left school and went into. So I think when you're passionate about something, you just make time. And right now I'm very, very passionate about what I'm doing.
No, sounds good. Shall we dive into a quick round of Microsoft Mentors quickfire?
No pressure. Yes,
No.
let's try. Let's try.
No pressure at all. I guess probably relevant to the journey that you're on at the moment. Do you think it's more important to scale top line revenue first, or always be focusing on bottom line margin and profitability?
I think it's more important to scale top line. I think it's important to grow quickly. I think you have to do that with excellence in mind, and you have to do it with excellence of product in mind. So I think it's important to scale quickly and look at that top line, but you have to make sure you're doing it in the best way possible, that your product is brilliant, that you're building constantly, that you're improving constantly, and you capture the market first. If you capture the market first, you can then start worrying about the bottom line. It's not that the bottom line doesn't matter, it always matters, but I think that top line, when you're growing for scale, matters more.
Yeah. I already know, I think, the answer to this question, given the conversation that we've just had, but being a niche player or being a broad provider to everyone?
Niche player. I think niche players are where the market is going. And I think if you've got the answer to something, if you can solve a problem, then go out and solve it and capture the market for that. Because not only are you changing how people work and changing their lives, you're also building a really successful business doing so.
Yeah. What's one thing that you think a lot of leaders overcomplicate?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think a lot of leaders sometimes overcomplicate what their offering is. And that's very true in services, but it can be true in product as well. I think if you're clean and concise about what your product is, what it does, and how it helps, then you're not going to confuse the market. You're not going to confuse your team. You're not going to confuse yourself. And you can deliver that excellence and you can deliver it quickly. If you overcomplicate your offerings, if you try to be everything to everyone, and I have done it, then all you do is leave yourself with a muddled mess where nobody really knows where you fit.
Yeah, for sure. I'll preface this question. Just answer it as if no one from Microsoft is listening, or maybe making sure people from Microsoft are listening. What's one thing that you think could be changed or should be changed about how partners work with Microsoft?
I think Microsoft are always listening, and I do think they try to enable on it. But what I would like to see change is maybe more information for what partners can get out of the journey. I think there's a lot of stuff out there, but there's a lot of stuff out there. So if I had a magic wand that I could wave tomorrow, it would be almost like a Q&A portal where you can go in and say, how do I do this? And it will surface the right website, because they're actually so good to partners. There's plethora. Is that the right word? There's so much information out there. Sometimes it's hard to know where to start without somebody pointing in the right direction. So what I think, if I had a magic wand to change, it would be some sort of Q&A bot where you can say, I'm an ISB, where do I get started? And it sends you to the right sites, the right programs, and gives you the right information.
We've just created it, Max. We need to go talk to Microsoft.
Yes, we do.
Co-pilot for partners.
Co-pilot for partners.
There we go. And obviously you spoke about the fact that you're going to be scaling the team where you're at now. You've scaled teams before. What's the one, or is there one thing, one trait, one personality, I guess, indicator that you always look for, or if you see that in that person, you go, that's a person for me?
I think people can be too different to narrow it down to one trait. I think for me, it's all about the sort of vibe when you meet that person. So maybe it comes down to to honesty. I think honest people shine through. I think when you're meeting with someone and they're very genuine, then they very quickly pass the vibe check. And I think that's really important, because honesty and accountability are really, really important from that element for me. And I think you can just tell that in a person. You can just tell when you're chatting to a person that, okay, I believe what you're saying. I hate saying genuine, because I think everybody's genuine in their own way. But I think honest people who have accountability for themselves and their actions is something that I really admire. And I think it's hard. I think it's really hard to hold the mirror up to yourself and see where you need to improve as well as where you're great. But I think people that can do that are winners.
For sure. And final question. You got a big suitcase full of cash, unlimited budget, 2-week trip away anywhere. Where are you going?
Maldives with my husband. We need a break. I love him to pieces, and we don't have enough time, just he and myself together. We try and do it at least once a year, just in Budapest, but we keep saying we're going to go to either St. Lucia or the Maldives, and we're going to a holiday where we do nothing, because we're one of those families where we go on holiday at somewhere historical or it's Disney World, but it's always something where you walk about 20,000 steps per day and you come home absolutely exhausted. So big suitcase full of money. I might bring the kids along as well, and they can just stay in a different hotel or a different place from us. So
Maldives is perfect because you just put them on a different island.
On a different island. But Maldives, myself, my husband, without a doubt.
Brilliant. Sounds like a good plan. Well, Mags, thanks very much for your time taking us through. Really interesting journey through the Microsoft partner ecosystem that sounds like it's going into its next new and exciting phase. As always, I'll make sure that everything that you're involved with is tagged up so people can come and find you and find all the different businesses and initiatives that you're involved with. And best of luck over the next coming months with the next phase of the hockey stick moving through with Yavrio.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one. Catch you later.
Bye.
Hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Whether you listen to us on LinkedIn Live, on YouTube, on Spotify, or wherever else you listen to your podcast, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. Both myself, Ollie Ridley, on LinkedIn, our guests, and also the podcast. The more people that we know are listening, the more time and investment we can make into the podcast and bring more conversations with our Microsoft mentors and leaders from across the Microsoft partner ecosystem to our community. In the meantime, stay tuned and keep an eye out for next week's episode.